Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today another very detailed weather update coming your way. We're going to be talking about the wrap-up on the intense cold that's occurred over New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. We're also going to be talking about a very powerful cold front that's expected to impact Western Australia, and then what that cold front will be doing for South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. So all of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. And if you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. Your support is greatly appreciated. So starting things off over in New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania at this time. You can see the low pressure systems now, although one of them is over the top of Victoria and it's moving across Victoria and it's about to re-emerge offshore from New South Wales around the Jervis Bay territory, and the other low pressure system barreling into the Tasman Sea at this time. They are much weaker this morning, still though some damaging wind gusts being experienced across the eastern coast of Tasmania and the Gippsland coast of Victoria. Those winds will increase across Victoria throughout the course of today, and there's currently a severe weather warning active for the mountainous areas across Victoria and the east coast of Tasmania for damaging winds. Also some strong winds that I might mention up into New South Wales. Newcastle Airport with gusts up to 50 or 60 kilometres an hour at this time, so certainly quite windy there, and that's coinciding with some very cold temperatures. You can see Newcastle Airport with those winds of 50 kilometres an hour gusting to 70 and a current temperature of 12 degrees, which means those feels like temperatures are going to be icy, and it is a very cold westerly that's blowing into the suburbs of Sydney. So if you are watching from Sydney, first of all, hello. Second of all, let me know how cold it is in the comment section down below, because I imagine that it is awful right now through there. It wasn't as cold as we expected overnight. In fact, hardly any locations got below zero unless you were in truly alpine areas. It was absolutely awfully cold the other night though. Cooma got down to nearly -10 with it feels like below -14, so very, very cold for them, and it has been pretty cold across Tasmania and Victoria as well, but conditions will be slightly warmer throughout the course of today. Still though, some snowfall is expected along the highlands across New South Wales, mostly on the tops outside of Katoomba, Bathurst and Orange. Some wet snow is expected to continue through there. However, the majority of the snowfall has already fallen for those locations, and I do believe for areas south of Orange it will certainly be easing off throughout the course of today, and there won't be any more snow to be talking about. Still though, with that Arctic air or that Antarctic air pull moving up into the Barrington Tops and Glen Innes, there will be a couple of flurries up there throughout the course of tonight into very early tomorrow morning, but the remainder of the snowfall easing out of New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania by Wednesday around 6 or 7 a.m. local time, and it will only be on the absolute highest of elevations that are accustomed to snow. So once again, not as much snow was expected. This kind of system wasn't as strong as we once thought it would be, and that's because it moved over Tasmania instead of remaining over water where it could actually strengthen significantly. So that was some very good news indeed, a slight wobble in its track, and that made all the difference in the forecast. However, still, I imagine it is bitterly cold across the mountains of New South Wales and the coastal parts of New South Wales as well. I mean, as far north as Cape Byron and even up towards the Gold Coast as well, it is absolutely freezing. Only low double-digit temperatures there with a strong wind chill as well, so very, very cold indeed. And you can see as this low-pressure system moves away, it looks like the temperatures will increase throughout the course of Wednesday, but still it will be remaining cold and windy for tomorrow. If I've left anything unanswered, or if you've got something else that you'd like to add to what's actually happened over in New South Wales, Victoria, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear from you if you got snow as well. Let me know where the snow did actually fall. But yeah, that's kind of a wrap-up on this cold snap here. We will talk about it tomorrow. There was very little rainfall and not as much snowfall expected, and it was bitterly cold across New South Wales and Victoria. It's time now to head over west, where we've got a very powerful cold front. The Bureau of Meteorology has highlighted the chance of heavy falls now for the southwest corner of Western Australia, from a line between Jurien Bay down to Bremer Bay, including Perth, Albany, Bunbury and Mandurah. So very, very heavy rainfall is expected to be coming through, and you can see it on the cold front here in the synoptic chart with the rainfall overlaid. You can see from Wednesday afternoon we're looking at this big strip of moderate to heavy rainfall approaching the Perth coastline and the southwest of Western Australia's coastline in general, making its crossing of the southwest Cape sometime Wednesday afternoon into late evening. Rainfall will start to extend there from about 3 or 4 p.m. into Bunbury at around 5 p.m. and then into Perth. The showers will start to pick up at around 7 or 8 p.m. depending on where exactly you are. But the heavy rainfall won't start on Wednesday. It will start actually on Thursday. Very early Thursday morning we're expecting this big belt of very heavy rainfall where we're talking up towards 20, maybe 25 millimetres every 3 hours streaming in. Considering this rain belt will last for maybe 6 hours, the chance of locations picking up 50 millimetres is certainly there, so we're going to have to be watching this one very closely and watching the weather observations as well, especially through Thursday. The majority of the rainfall clearing out of the Perth metro area by early Thursday morning around 6 a.m. for the southern suburbs and about 8 or 9 a.m. for the northern suburbs, so the morning commute could still be a little bit wet, but by the time the bulk of the people get on the roads, it should be a little bit dry, but still take extra care on those roads. They will be saturated and there will be minor flooding in some locations. The rainfall will also extend significantly far north. We're talking about some heavy rainfall making it as far north as Geraldton, Northampton and Kalbarri. We could be seeing accumulations up towards 30 or 40 millimetres there early Thursday morning. The rainfall clearing out of those locations by around late lunchtime Thursday into the early evening hours of around 4 or 5 p.m. up around Kalbarri and Geraldton, and there being light and moderate rainfall extending into the Murchison, the Gascoyne and then into the Goldfields region as well. Kalgoorlie could expect about 10 millimetres, and whilst this rainfall extends into the Goldfields in the evening hours of Thursday, we're expecting some showers and storms in the wake of this system to brush up against the south coastal region between Augusta and Albany, and they might make it as far north as the Perth coastal areas as well, maybe even as far north as Jurien Bay. We could be seeing some strong winds, heavy rainfall at times, small hailstones and the odd thunder shower here and there Thursday night and into early Friday morning. But yeah, that clearing out by Friday morning, probably around 9 or 10 a.m. For the Perth metro area. The rainfall then really contracting to the south coast between Esperance and Albany, where it will continue to ease off there. But in all, very good rainfall is expected, and it's expected to make it from a line between Coral Bay across to maybe Lanista or even Wiluna in the Goldfields, and that includes locations that don't typically receive rainfall from these winter fronts, such as Meekatharra or Mount Augustus. They could be seeing a couple of drops of good rainfall from this weather event, so that is very interesting indeed. And it does look like pretty solid rainfall all through the wheat belt, expecting at least 20 millimetres of the stuff, and then into the Murchison as well. I mean, you can see rainfall accumulations up there. They do drop off very significantly, but still a couple of millimetres can be expected, between 5 and 10 millimetres of the wettest of locations. Very good rainfall along the coastline, especially in the Gascoyne coastline. Kalbarri expecting 30 millimetres, Geraldton 35, and then down towards Jurien Bay and Savandies a healthy 30 millimetres as well. Right on the Bureau of Meteorology's target of 40 millimetres for Perth, the Bureau of Meteorology has highlighted between 15 and 40 millimetres with heavy falls coming through on Thursday. The Eastern WF a little bit more bullish, calling for 45 millimetres, Mandurah about 30 millimetres of the stuff. I do think Perth will be copping a pretty heavy deluge here, especially into the hills. I would not be surprised if one or two locations picked up 60, maybe 70 millimetres, just because of the direction that this rain is going to be streaming in and just how long it's going to be lasting. It will be a night of very wet rainfall. We're also expecting some very good falls along the south coast, powered by those thunderstorms in the wake of this system, up to 60 or 70 millimetres there. The wheat belt also getting some good rainfall, especially a line between York down to Albany, anywhere towards the west of that expecting at least 20 millimetres, but it does unfortunately become a little bit more hit and miss in the eastern extremities of the wheat belt outside of Lake Grace and then across to Hyden. The rainfall will only be a couple of millimetres, maybe 10 millimetres for some lucky farmers out there, but unfortunately the rainfall doesn't look that good. But north of Great Eastern Highway, it picks up once again into the northern parts of the wheat belt, which has been unseasonably wet this wet season, expecting yet more rainfall up there to fill up their dams and rivers, and it's starting to get a little bit of a concern because we don't want too much rainfall up there. It's just going to saturate the ground and rot the crops up there. So the rainfall is starting to get just a little bit on the extreme side up there, and it'd be good if we did have a couple of sunny days or a couple of sunny weeks up in the northern parts of the wheat belt just to get things to really dry out before the next deluge, but that is no sign on the forecast, unfortunately, at this time. Now, this is reciprocated amongst the forecast models, GFS saying basically the exact same thing, need any more introduction on this. The Axis G3 is saying for what looks to be a pretty big line of thunderstorms firing up along the coastline sometime Thursday morning. Now, this is very typical Axis G3 forecast model shenanigans. It does often fire up some nice thunderstorms ahead of these cold fronts here, which is perfectly normal. I mean, it is a convective model, which means it has a bias for thunderstorms. However, what I would like to note here, and this is not something that a lot of weather trackers talk about, is just how warm the Lewin Current is, especially for locations north of Perth. The sea surface temperature anomaly is here about 2, maybe even 3 degrees Celsius above average for some locations. Now, this is just prime fuel for thunderstorms to be firing up before they hit the Perth coastline, and that's why we're expecting such a heavy belt of rainfall to merge merge with the West Australian coastline for locations between Kalbarri down towards Perth, and that's also why Perth has had a lot more rainfall than more typically and more seasonally wetter locations in the southwest of Western Australia, which have had average rainfall for the winter season. Perth currently sitting at slightly above average, especially considering for how the winter rainfall normally works. I mean, it's normally July and August that are the wettest months, and June was very wet, and it looks like we're going to continue that wet streak into July as well. So that's why Perth has been receiving quite strong and quite heavy deluges from these powerful cold fronts. It's because the Lewin current is running so warm. Another threat that I would like to talk about from this cold front, I know I'm going all in on the details here, but it's also the wind threat. Expecting some damaging winds Wednesday evening into early Thursday morning for the southwest capes and extending up towards Jurien Bay, gusts up towards 70, maybe 80 kilometres an hour for some locations. Nothing too crazy, but still could be quite strong. In the wake of this cold front as well, Thursday night into early Friday morning, those winds will be very strong once again for the south coastal. They probably won't make it as far north as Perth, but Rottnest Island could still receive some healthy wind gusts Thursday night into Friday morning, and that of course means that the wave heights and the swells are going to be huge on Thursday, expecting peak wave heights up towards 6, maybe 7 metres offshore from Western Australia. That's peak wave heights. The average wave height will be around 4 to 5 metres to the southwest coast of Western Australia, but still very tall waves extending as far north as the Abrolhos Islands in Geraldton. So boating, fishing, any shore-based activity, absolutely not recommended in a weather event like this. Make sure you are staying safe. Now, there is more rainfall behind this weather system, believe it or not. In fact, it might be a pretty miserable weekend with some showers hitting in on Saturday and also into Sunday as well for the Perth metro area as a cold front prepares to cross the coast on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Now, this one here could also dump a healthy amount of rainfall, maybe 20 millimetres of the stuff. It certainly won't be anything as wet as the one that's going to be coming through in about 2 days' time, but still, it looks like we're going to be seeing some pretty good rainfall from this weather event as well. Like I said, up towards 20 millimetres of the stuff, because it is about 6 hours of 10 millimetres every 3 hour rainfall. So that does look at like more healthy rainfall coming through. And I mean, it's a pretty normal time of the year for these cold fronts to be moving through. What's also interesting is that the forecast models have this becoming kind of a big low pressure system in the centre of Australia, or at least in the centre of Western Australia, and firing up a bunch of showers there. So for the heads up for the central parts of Western Australia, yet more rainfall is coming your way to the middle parts of next week. And that will also include locations in the Northern Territory and South Australia as well. But we will be touching on that closer to the date if it does actually materialise on the forecast models. But what this just does mean is more rainfall once again for Western Australia. And the way that this cold front is developing, it looks like it's going to be quite a powerful one, so we will have to keep our eyes on that very closely. But peak rainfall accumulations over the next 10 days looking very healthy for the southwest of Western Australia, up to 100 millimetres for the south coast, in fact 110 millimetres for some lucky locations. Perth expecting up to 75 millimetres over the next 10 days, about 50 of that will be coming through on Thursday, another 10 on Friday, and then 15 to 20 of the stuff coming through to the middle parts of next week. And the good rainfall extending up into the Murchison as well, and even inland into the wheat belt. In fact, there will be places picking up some very good rainfall over the next 10 days. Lake Grace kind of the only outlier here, but still 15 millimetres there. They will not be saying no to that kind of rainfall. You've seen that I've zoomed out. We're getting ready to head over east and talk about cold fronts over there. But that is a very detailed forecast for Western Australia. If I've left anything unanswered, please do let me know in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to see anything else covered in a future video, then also let me know in the comment section down below. Now, heading over east, we've covered the cold snap impacting New South Wales. In fact, there's very little rainfall expected over New South Wales over the next 10 days after the rainfall that comes through today. However, still, we're looking at some cold fronts that could deliver some rainfall to South Australia and then into Victoria and Tasmania as well. And the majority of those coming through later this week into early next week. And you can see quite a strong one, which is the remnants of the one to impact Western Australia coming through on Friday morning into Friday afternoon for South Australia, and also into Friday for Tasmania as well. Could be bringing some damaging wind gusts here and there, especially for the King Island region and then the northern parts of Tasmania adjacent to the Bass Strait. Some wind gusts as well for Victoria are possible. And it's also going to be bringing a deluge of snow to the Snowy Mountains as well around Kosciuszko, Thredbo, and then into Victoria as well for Mount Buller and Mount Hotham, expecting a deluge of snow, a very good dumping of snow Friday night. Full-blown blizzard conditions are possible on Friday night into Saturday morning. You can see actually in terms of how much snowfall that they are expecting. Snowfall over the next 24 hours is stuff that's going to be happening today. They're expecting a further 20 centimetres there, but snowfall that's going to be happening for the next cold front is up to 45 centimetres, which means a further 25 centimetres is possible Friday night into Saturday morning. morning. So a very good dumping of snowfall expected there, and some good snowfall also expected for Tasmania. So that's very interesting too. They have had a below average snowfall so far this year, so it's about time that they do get some nice snowfall accumulations there. And once again, a wet weekend for South Australia, Victoria, or at least South Australia's deep south below Adelaide. In fact, I should be saying around Mount Gambier and Robe, expecting some rainfall on Saturday and Sunday. The Victorian coastline as well into Melbourne, expecting a little bit of rainfall as well Saturday and Sunday, and the west coast of Tasmania expecting heavy showers on Saturday and Sunday as well, possibly up towards 25 or 30 millimetres of this stuff, and some strong winds as well to go along with it. Typical winter weather for there, but still there could be some additions to the river levels that are already at or above flooding levels across a lot of Tasmania, so that is just a little bit of a concern and something that we will need to keep a very close eye on. In terms of peak rainfall accumulations to the west coast, we're talking up towards 150 millimetres, so some very good rainfall expected there. Into Adelaide as well, expecting up towards 25 millimetres over the next 10 days. The majority of that is going to be happening from the front that's going to be moving through on Friday, but still a little bit more rainfall expected this weekend, and a couple of showers also expected today for the Adelaide area, so make sure you've got that umbrella or the poncho on you, because it looks like it could be just a little bit wet there. Eyre Peninsula, it's only going to be the west coast receiving the rainfall between Ceduna and Port Lincoln, up to 20 millimetres of the stuff, but still some locations could be receiving up towards 10, maybe 15 millimetres on the inland parts of the Eyre Peninsula. Kangaroo Island expecting a very healthy 50 millimetres in some locations, so again some good rainfall there. And the interior parts of South Australia, the rainfall are going to be very uncertain, because it is that system that I talked about later on in the forecast period, but a couple of drops are possible around the 8 to 9 day mark, so again we will keep a very close eye on that. Now, you've probably noticed this big H over the top of New South Wales. Unfortunately, that is a high-pressure system, and you know what high-pressure systems bring? They bring brutally cold temperatures, and it looks like in the wake of all of these weather systems here, we're going to be talking about a very cold weekend, or at least end to this week, under a high-pressure ridge, and a very cold end to this week, and a cold start to the weekend as well. A lot of locations on Friday night expecting to go significantly below zero, especially in the mountains, and extending deep into New South Wales and the northern, even the southern and the central parts of Queensland expecting to go close to zero. You can see Alpha outside of Emerald and Longreach here at 2 degrees, very cold for them. And this very cold air will be starting to move in from tonight. It will start to take hold from tomorrow, but it's not going to be fully apparent until about Friday, when those really cold conditions move into New South Wales, especially into the mountainous areas. They do get a little bit of reprieve this weekend, but the mountains in the northern parts of New South Wales, the Barrington Tops, Glen Innes, that sort of area will be very cold this weekend. But from those cold fronts, Victoria and the southern parts of New South Wales do get a little bit of reprieve from the brutal cold, but it's going to be Sunday and Monday once again when those really cold conditions do start to kick back in. So again, make sure you do rug up, because it will be cold under these high pressure ridges. And yeah, absolutely no crazy stuff in this cold air, because it is going to be very, very cold across New South Wales. Tasmania going to be slightly warmer, just because they are in that cold front sort of situation where they're just getting rain on rain on rain. But it's still New South Wales, parts of Victoria and even parts of Queensland will go very close to zero. So make sure you do rug up there. The remainder of Australia, though, as you can see, especially on the rainfall accumulation map, looking high and dry. A little bit of rainfall for far north Queensland, close to the 10-day forecast period, but again, very uncertain, so we will touch on that in tomorrow's forecast update. If I've left anything unanswered, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. But apart from that, that's all that I've got time for today, and I thank you so much for watching. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. Their support is amazing, and I could not run this show without them. They're the reason that I've got access to this fancy software, and like I said, their support is absolutely necessary to the survival of this channel. So thank you so much to all of the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing, and also leave a like on the video. The support recently has been incredible. Tell me a weather report for your location in the comment section down below. I look forward to getting back to all of them today. But that is all from me. I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.